Thanks for joining Ground School. I'm super excited about this session. I hope you are too. This is Miles Ward, CTO again. I am excited to introduce my new friend, Kate Holterhoff. She is an industry analyst at RedMonk. They are a super sharp analyst group focused in on technology, cloud issues. They've really helped us think through this space. I'm excited about today's conversation. I hope you are too, Kate.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Miles. So name is Kate Holterhoff. RedMonk is a really cool organization. We're a developer-focused analyst firm, which means we really think through the experience of the practitioner. And recently, I've been researching upskilling with an emphasis on trends in certification, badging, and the skills gap problem.
Okay, that's an interesting focus. Like, can you tell me about your part in unpacking it, your role as an analyst in that environment?
Sure. So what it looks like in the day-to-day is that I talk to a lot of folks about how their upskilling journey is sort of taking shape. And the subject of upskilling has never been more pertinent with stakeholders spanning the org. So business leaders, managers, people ops, sales, marketing, and the developer community writ large. Everyone has a stake in equipping their organization for the future of work. So a lot of folks are excited to talk about this space with me. And I've been just doing a number of interviews, a lot of reading, a lot of research, all the stuff that analysts get excited to do on the day-to-day.
Yeah, you've got it right. Yeah, if the only constant is change and the pace of change is accelerating, I think everybody has an opportunity to do a lot in upskilling. I think we kind of understand what it means to upskill. Maybe as an analyst that's focusing on technology and the experience of the practitioner, can you share with us why that's so important, why that's critical right now?
Sure thing. So according to the Future Jobs Report issued by the World Economic Forum, by 2025, half of all employees will need reskilling. And I'll talk a little bit about the difference between reskilling, upskilling, cross-skilling, some terms that kind of get a little muddied. So much of this disruption is due to what Klaus Schwab terms the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is a phrase that we've been kicking around for a while. And what that means is that automation and AI, they're fundamentally shifting the way that we work. So this revolution is set apart by the speed of change driven by technological transformation. It includes not only acceleration of ideas, but the distribution of these innovations across the globe. So when we think about upskilling as it relates to individuals hoping to shift careers, that doesn't really give us the full picture. So these individuals who are trying to shift careers, they might be learning new competencies in order to be successful in a completely new role, oftentimes through boot camp, certifications, these sort of assessments. But businesses are also invested in upskilling. And so it's worthwhile to define these terms a little bit. Upskilling is intended to help employees to develop new, deeper competencies, and it's tied to their current role. Whereas reskilling prepares them to transition into new roles within the organization. Cross-skilling develops new skills that are valuable across multiple functions and is useful to mitigate risks tied to information silos, such as losing institutional knowledge in the event of employee turnover. So for these newcomers in the field, and I tend to focus on individuals looking to enter the tech field, often from outside of STEM, it's a more accurate way to characterize that role as reskilling. But all of these things kind of fall under that umbrella of upskilling. So Miles, I'd love to hear a little bit about your thoughts on upskilling from the lens of a CTO. What kind of emphasis do you place on professional development opportunities for your team?
Sure. The technology that saved my startup 16 years ago is now so outdated and irrelevant. We sort of laugh about removing it from the most legacy of our customers. So in that span of time, the stuff that was something we would hire for with just the tiniest amount of exposure to is now a legacy skill you put at the bottom of the list in a job resume.
Wow.
So that means you've got to move in technology, right? So the investment that we make as a team is not only giving engineers time for their own self-directed autodidact learning. A lot of the people that we hire for is specifically for that learning skill more so than any specific technical aptitude that's on the resume, because again, they have a shelf life like eggs. And the reality is we really have to learn from each other. So it's podcasts, it's conferences, it's the connection with other engineers, even participation in open source projects. All of those are a way for folks to get at the newer technologies that are pushing them forward.
That makes a lot of sense to me. When I speak to folks, especially coming out of boot camp programs, I often tell them that looking into open source is an absolute great way to get that sort of real world experience. Because, I've talked to hiring managers who complain that a lot of times boot camp grads, they end up with these portfolios that all look like cookie cutter solutions to a problem and just don't have that breadth of knowledge that they're looking for, the sort of soft skills of communication. A lot of them have never even done a pull request. And so this is a huge issue when we talk about the skills gap problem and try to formulate how it is that we can, help folks who either want to join the STEM, realm altogether, or that are trying to move within the org. They need to have these sort of competencies, and we're doing them a disservice if they leave without them.
Right. So, I mean, there's boot camps and then there's universities, right? I spent some time talking to my alma mater and looked through their curriculum, and I had to apologize to them. I wasn't going to hire any of the people that came out with those skills. They didn't have a degree in what we do. As a former university instructor, like, what do you see as the sort of the contributions that are being made from the formal educational environment, whether it's university or trade schools or the rest? Are they able to keep up with this sort of transition into reskilling and upskilling?
Yeah. Well, that is kind of the big issue, is that, we joke about, boot camps that are, sort of overpriced, or certifications that maybe hiring managers aren't as interested in as folks would hope. But even folks who are coming out of a junior developer role, they also oftentimes don't have the skills that they need in order to jump into the workforce. Even at a junior developer level, a lot of them end up doing sort of apprenticeships, internships, and that's how they then transition. I was speaking with one director of engineering who part of his journey was that he had to teach himself Ruby on Rails when he left, because that was the hip thing, in the 2010s, and it was something that was not taught as a part of his sort of standardized curriculum. There's the sort of pertinent aspects of upskilling are, across the board, the need to dive in headfirst to sort of real world problems that just cannot be replicated in educational settings, no matter how well they're accredited.
Yeah, we like to think we run a program, several of them at SADA, that are really focused on helping people get hands-on together with our customers as they're trying to learn. And I think there's no greater university in the world than the hard knock problems that actual businesses are sort of struggling with. But another struggle of those businesses of late is budgets, right? I mean, education sounds, pretty distant from, hitting problems on the bottom line. With budgets getting tighter, why do you think it's so important to prioritize the investments in skills and what are you seeing from businesses on that side?
Sure. So upskilling is so important, especially in tech, because things change at such a rapid rate. We can all agree with that. And acceleration and innovation, they absolutely go hand in hand, and businesses need to keep up with the latest tech to stay relevant. This is an unquestioned fact. But one misconception is that upskilling is extremely expensive. Although this is not always the case, especially if we can think a little more holistically about what upskilling actually means. So the Harvard Business Review actually wrote about what they termed the middle skills gap a decade ago. And a little history here, unions used to foot a significant amount of the bill for upskilling, particularly by means of apprenticeships. But with the decline of these institutions, employers have increasingly been left holding the bag. However, it is easier than ever to upskill online for little or no investment beyond the time and willpower that it takes. So in order to stay informed about the latest trends and technologies in your field, you can follow industry leaders and experts on social media and subscribe to relevant newsletters, podcast publications. And you can network with other professionals in your field by attending local meetups and events. Part of my own upskilling journey after I left academia was joining a meetup in Atlanta called Women Who Code, ATL. And it was an extremely important part of my own sort of journey into a whole new career set. Another extremely important part of this would be conferences like Ground School. They can be a great way for business leaders to learn about new products and features and how these innovations move the needle in terms of competition. Practitioners should also be looking into conferences, dealing with their area of expertise to stay ahead of trends and the latest features and integrations. Although registration can sometimes be pricey, especially for junior devs or individuals looking to switch careers, I recommend asking if there are opportunities to apply for sponsorships or to volunteer at the event in exchange for free admission. So maybe your company offers a professional development budget. I've spoken to a few in Atlanta that offer like $1,000 a year for this sort of thing. You can use that to attend conferences. Even without support, look into free local events and meetups like the Women Who Code Atlanta, which can offer some similar advantages, such as networking opportunities and sharing information in a sort of collegial way.
That I'm super motivated about, especially helping people that come from disadvantaged backgrounds and making it so that this stuff is as low cost as humanly possible. I mean, one of the big advantages of the kind of networking approach is, people who do have problems that they need help with. You can think of it as like a problem network. I used to be a solutions architect. The solution part was always the easy bit. It was finding all the hard problems that was the challenge.
Yeah.
The other piece that's really powerful that we found a lot is maybe the greatest university of all time called YouTube that we're watching a huge number of people sort of take educational value from, and might not be the end of your learning journey, but can be an incredible starting point and a way to get at the vocabulary to do your next search for the next thing to learn and help you sort of dig up the goods. But to shift gears a little bit, how are you hearing from customers, about upskilling? Like, can you maybe share the types of certifications or other kinds of goals that employers are putting on employees as they take on an upskilling journey?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned before, there's a sort of stereotype that engineering team hiring managers are not impressed by certifications, and this continues into the present. I'm afraid, although the perception that certifications in particular don't test real-world skills is beginning to change with the rise of cloud. The COVID-19 pandemic absolutely shifted everything in terms of the upskilling revolution. There is a whole new educational paradigm. Tests happen remotely more often now. A lot of the folks I talked to, their certifications were happening online increasingly, and they kind of saw that as the future. But, Pearson VUE is now doing that almost by default at this point. So the era of sort of buttoned up IT certifications that Novell established in the 90s, so I'm thinking here of like the Certified Novell Engineer certification program, that is ended. And we're in this sort of new phase of online learning, YouTube being a particularly important part of that. But importantly, today, education can be fun. And, anyone who has downloaded like Salesforce's Trailblazer app knows how addictive it is. It's entertaining, and they made the process of learning about their products into this sort of gamified experience. It lowers the stakes of assessments and the sort of badges that you acquire. It almost becomes addictive, the number of ones that you can collect. So that, we just didn't see that sort of move in the past. And that's really taken the certification space by storm. But business leaders may be put off by this at first, this sort of new breed of entertaining low-stake assessments. They're like, how is this actually going to help my team to gain the competencies that they need to be successful here? But these tools actually can be very effective. So another innovation has been the rise of learning subscriptions. So again, YouTube is a great resource. There's a lot of very good content on YouTube, of course. I use it pretty frequently, and it's not going anywhere. Important to notice that there is sort of a more not accredited, but I guess standardized, and there are a number of monthly and yearly subscriptions that are provided by the vendors themselves. So they, of course, would know about the newest releases and what sort of tools they're recommending that folks learn in order to be successful with their products. So a few of those would be the Google Cloud Skills Boost, Red Hat offers a learning subscription, VMware, and a Cloud Guru. These are all popular subscriptions, all of which enable employees to access top-tier professional resources for staying up to date on the latest releases and features in their organization's stack.
Yeah, I really agree. we spent a lot of time helping Google really early on with Skills Boost and the Cloud Clout challenges. They're all built into the Quick Labs platform. That's been a really useful tool for us, not only internally, but in joint with customers. A lot of our customers like not only to be, a part of kind of a mentorship process, but to be learning along with our learners so they can kind of pace themselves with our folks. There's also a lot of there's a thing that we built on the Google side called Game Day or Cloud Hero too. Both of them now are different programs. Cloud Hero, sets up basically the same kinds of contests, but they're timed. So now you're in this just madcap race against 50 other people trying to hurry through and get the demonstration environment built. Just a little bit of competitive juice can do a lot to get, the learning process to be a little more engaging and exciting. I wanted to speak a little to the point that you made earlier. I really agree. I think, as learning and certification gets easier, you're going to see the perception of value fall a bit. There's table stakes. I want to see people invested in their own education, but some certifications are just easier than others. We took a lot of value, and we've actually given a lot of feedback to the Google teams about the really top, hardest, scariest certifications. So they built a program called the Anthos Fellows Program. I think they only actually gave that certification to a total of 76 people worldwide, right? It's a 3-day interview, collaborative build session with professional services on the Google side. You have to go pitch executives in the Google teams to get signed up. There are 9 of them that were a part of our team here at SADA. So we were familiar with the process, but I think there's a lot of opportunity not to get to the basics, but to help the folks that are really the absolute best in the world at this stuff stand out. So you can upskill even if you're at the top of your game. There's further left to go. The other side of this that I think is pretty interesting too is the security end of things. There's a lot of places where, I think especially as parts of the technical landscape get so broad, so fast, right? The Kubernetes arrives and all of a sudden all of the structure for securing an application changes. A huge portion of the system gets altered. So I think it's one of the places, especially as we're building new orchestration, new coordination tools, new systems for managing other systems. All of the certification and upskilling that has to happen in that context becomes super critical. New spaces have, sort of lower likelihood of the old way of keeping things safe still working, right? There's all these new API endpoints. There's all these new potential risks. So it's been a spot where we're really investing in the upskilling journey.
Yeah, the security side of upskilling has been huge. With things moving as quickly as they are, I think, we hear S-bombs about every other day at RedMonk. So yeah it's it's moving quick. And, the fact that the government is increasingly involved in sort of mandating what it is that businesses need to be doing in order to encounter cybersecurity threats and ensure that businesses stay on their feet is something that's not going away anytime soon and is becoming increasingly important.
My dad had this metaphor, and he was actually talking about cars, but I think it works in a bunch of different ways, where it was sort of, if you're improving your car, every dollar that you put into go, you need to put $1 into stop, right? And so all of this place where you're trying to make software developers go faster, right? Like move. You can ship patches every 30 seconds and you're doing 2,000 builds a day. If you aren't spending the same kind of money and figuring out how to lock down the back doors and make sure everything's a little safer while you're at it, baking security into the process, I think we're just setting ourselves up for risk there.
Right. Yeah. Finding that balance between prevention and mitigation is sort of this ongoing, challenge, I think, in the security space, especially.
So thinking through the, what you're seeing, from an analyst lens, right, as you're looking across the different types of roles, right? You spoke to the kind of developer persona at the center. I think, cloud providers in general have if anything, over-indexed on the needs of developers in comparison to the operations teams that support them and the sort of broader technical enablement that sits behind the sort of center point developer practice. But, help me with, as folks are upskilling across any of the different sort of disciplines, how do they stand out? How do they make themselves differentiated from competitors?
Sure. Building a strong portfolio is everything. Making sure that you have a robust GitHub page that is going to help folks to really stand out. I think that there's this, again, I'm going to stereotypes here, but there's a sort of meritocracy, especially among developers, where they don't care about what your credentials are. That's not going to be the thing that gets you the job, although oftentimes it does. I think it's overstated a little bit.
Sure.
If you've got a Stanford degree, folks are going to sit up. But at the same time, if you can show that you've actually, been in the trenches, actually done the work, stood up these systems, that folks are going to absolutely take notice. And so if you're trying to reskill as part of your move to try to enter this domain, boot camps are great, certifications are great, but what you ultimately need to do is show the work that you can have built something, that you have created projects that caused you to bang your head against the wall, that you've gone through the pain, but that you've gone through the full stack, that you are able to work on a project from soup to nuts, that you have seen it grow in its entirety, and that you aren't just sort of doing tutorials and getting to this sort of hello world state, which doesn't really show hiring managers that you can do the work in a real world setting.
We've started to use this phrase at SADA because we live in a world where there's infrastructure as a service and platforms as a service and software as a service and everything is available as a service, and none of our customers really ask us for any of those things. That's not what they want. They want an outcome. They want the business value to get delivered. So we think of ourselves as a bit of outcomes as a service. And so when I'm looking through candidates, I need to hear that they have the ability to orient the work that they have done around the outcomes it has delivered, and that they have the ability to see all the way through from where they started to whether that's an outcome on them, that they didn't have this ability to develop in a given language or context or environment, and now they do, and they can show evidence of that, all the way through down to, the business had an application that was, underperforming, and we were able to close the performance gap and get to a place where a system was operable that was low reliability before. Those kinds of end outcomes are the spots that stand out for us. And especially in this sort of context of a conversation about learning, we definitely look for evidence of the capacity to learn, that it's been a normal part of your working experience to dive in headfirst, because I guarantee it's the safest conceivable bet in the world of technology that there will be a new thing tomorrow. So it's always an important capability for us to look at. Any closing thoughts? This has, I think, been a super, super compelling conversation. I appreciate you taking the time. Stuff that we should leave our learners with as they take this next step in their learning journey.
Sure. I think what's important to know about upskilling is that it takes a community. Learning should never happen in isolation, whether it's as part of an initiative at your company or as part of a personal journey to pursue new opportunities. There are so many tools and resources available to facilitate this journey. So online courses, tutorials. I recommend looking into Discord channels and Slack channels that are in creating community around a particular tool set that you're interested in. Local meetups, conferences like the Ground School. All of these are essential to a successful learning journey. No matter who I talk to, trying to learn things in isolation without taking advantage of this group of enthusiastic folks who are trying to reskill as well, or that they're trying to become more proficient at their jobs, just trying to stay on top of what's new, what sort of innovations are appearing. That is going to be the most important thing that comes out of this sort of upskilling revolution that we're seeing in this industry.
You got it. I mean, it's so easy to stay up late studying when it's for something that's awesome, right? Invest
Mm-hmm.
in the things that you find motivational, that you find awesome. I promise that the money that comes with that will come, the notoriety, the progress in your career, but staying oriented around the things that get you motivated just means you can learn twice as fast as everybody else. So thank you for taking the time with us, Kate, and thank you, audience, for tuning in. I can't wait to see how you make your way through this ground school. Thanks so much.